Hello, my name is Ria Patel. I'm a counsellor in Croydon, and I'm the Equalities and Diversity spokesperson. If I'm being honest, conference, it can be exhausting simply existing as a marginalised person, waking up every day to an onslaught of media articles demonising myself, friends, and family. The Conservatives have caused absolute chaos, harming communities and our planet. Instead of fixing actual problems, the cost of living crisis, the climate crisis, etc., they've focused on manufacturing so-called culture wars. They've been actively demonising trans people and used dangerous rhetoric of illegal migrants. Let me say that migration is natural. Humans have migrated for all of time, and it is borders and the hostile environment that is causing violence. That is the real threat, not migrants. Right-wingers are appalling hate and attacking humanity. Meanwhile, what have Labour done? Fanned the flames, refused to stand up for trans people, and instead of sharing positive stories about migration, they're more focused on cracking down on migration. What is the point of this Labour opposition? More worried about... They're more worried about electability than their humanity. Media have licked this up. The rhetoric has become more demonising towards marginalised communities, and that has become more normalised. Remember, while targeting and scapegoating starts with those most vulnerable, it doesn't end there. But in the Greens, we have hope. In our policies for a fairer, greener country. And in our leadership, who continue to challenge dog whistles and negative stereotypes, whilst promoting a positive vision for our society. And that is why I'm so proud to be doing this speech, to introduce Zack Polanski, our Deputy Leader. They're a truly hard-working Green. When standing to be Deputy Leader, one of Zack's reasons was that we needed a media breakthrough to get the representation that we deserve. And a year later, Zack has spoken on many news channels, so clearly articulating our policy with his charisma and passion for the Green Party shining through, never forgetting to uplift our communities that face the most oppression. And let's not forget that he made history as the first gay deputy leader. And one of 5 Jewish people in leadership positions in history. The fight for social, racial, economic, and environmental justice continues, because we are not truly liberated until we all are truly liberated. Conference, please give Zack Polanski a big, big round of applause.
Thank you, Ria. That was particularly lovely. I now have to speak. I'm slightly choked up. Thank you so much for that lovely introduction, and thank you, conference, for that gorgeous welcome. I want to tell you a story. We're all involved in this story. It's a story about our planet, our society, and it's a story about our party. You've all got your own individual stories about how you got here today. I'm not yet talking about trains, by the way, that'll come. I'm talking about our individual stories, but also our stories about how we relate with each other, what we can achieve when we work together, this powerful collective, both in this room and in the wider world. It's a story about who we are and why we care. So let me start briefly with my own story. I was with you all about a year ago, talking about pride. My pride in our party, my pride in our work, my pride in our commitment to justice. And at the end of the speech, I was filled with pride when my boyfriend Richie, he joined me on stage. And what you may not have known then was this was the first time we believe in British political history, a gay couple had joined each other on stage following a conference speech. I may have just spoiled the end of the speech as well, but that's fine. Many of you, some of you with tears in your eyes, told me what that meant to you to see that. And I get it, because I felt it too. Representation matters. Diversity matters. Our individual stories matter. I also spoke about my pride in being Jewish. That's another part of my story. Our stories are rarely linear or basic. They're these intersecting weave of threads. And together, all our stories working together is how we create that tapestry. And then we think about the story of the Green Party. We are doing something that has not been considered normal. Just like when Richie joined me on stage, we are creating what is possible. We are redefining norms. We are breaking molds. We are propelling progress. And what a moment to be in this party. You can feel it, can't you? A general election is coming, but friends, we're ready. I know. Thank you. We are ready. Thank you to the person in the middle for being the hype person. I know we're ready because I've been traveling the country. I have seen what you're doing in your communities, how hard you're working, and the difference you're making. You know, when people say to me, what is your favorite thing about being deputy leader of this party? The answer is easy. It's you. It's meeting you. Well, actually, the answer is more specific than that. It's meeting your dogs. But you're involved too, hey? I am talking about Alsatians in Arundel, Bassets in Burnley, Labradors in Lincoln, Greyhounds in Gatley. Actually, the Greyhounds were in Trafford, but the alliteration doesn't work. But and it's this getting around the country that feels so great. I remember one of my first visits was with Councillor Jack Lennox. We went, Jack took me to one of the city's first fully accessible playgrounds. This was a place where not only some of the fun was available to disabled children, all of the fun was. That's a true social model of disability, where everything is available to everyone. Worthing, I met Rod. I went canvassing with him. He told me, just casually while we were chatting, he had the first local Green Party meeting in his living room over 40 years ago. And then there's Chesterfield, a community pride. I was so deep in conversation with local party activists, I actually missed 90s boy band A1, but I love the visit, it's all cool. And then there's the story of election night. It's 11 p.m. We have been knocking on doors all day. We are all tired. There has been polling stations. There's been dogs in polling stations. There's a theme to the speech. And I'm speaking to the media. It's about 11 p.m. and nothing really yet has happened. And then something extraordinary does happen. I'm interrupted by a 23-year-old Green candidate in Worcester winning a seat. Beautiful. You don't know who it is yet? Maybe you do. This was beautiful in itself, but it was made even more brilliant by the fact she defeated the incumbent Conservative leader of the council. And the night began with Councillor Tor Pingree. The Worcester team is definitely in the house. And that was just the start of it, because actually, that night, 16 young Greens were elected. A huge achievement for the young Greens. Well done. I love that night for obvious reasons. I was with some of the staff team, and at the beginning of the night, we had that quiet nervousness, but actually it was quite confident. We knew what was coming, but those numbers just kept going up and up and up. Myself and the rest of the leadership team, we were running around doing interviews, and then those numbers carried on going up. And this feels like a good moment to say to all of our staff team, no matter where you are, whether it's in England or Wales, no matter what you do, we are so thankful for you. Thank you, staff team. And so that was just the beginning. And there are so many stories of people's successes in those local elections. But I just want to focus briefly on other people's stories. Those stories of narrow misses, lost seats, and heartbreaking results. You know, I remember when I first put my name on a Green Party ballot paper. That feeling of doing something so basic and simple for democracy, but actually that much bigger feeling. That feeling that you're doing something really important. You're standing behind what you believe in. And actually, although local elections are about important issues like potholes, bins, local services, they're actually about your core values and beliefs. They're about rejecting old, tired narratives about incremental change and actually saying to the world, there is an urgent crisis that we need to wake up to. I wish that every Green who put their name on a ballot paper would win, but ultimately, standing up and being counted, choosing and making a difference is huge. So to every single candidate, including the much bigger teams who supported those candidates, thank you. On my travels, I went to Gipton and Hare Hills, where some of you may know Mothin Ali. If you don't know the name Mothin Ali, you have not been glued to social media. Mothin Ali was out every single day, door knocking and canvassing, and he was busy telling the whole world that he was door knocking and canvassing. And when I went to visit him, he took me to his local Bangladeshi community centre. I heard directly from people who had voted Green all their lives. Sorry, that is not true. I wish it was true. They'd voted Labour all their lives. It was inconceivable they could ever vote Green. Yet here I was with Mothin, these people, a cup of tea, and they were now asking me, how could they encourage their friends and family to also vote Green? Things are changing. And that very same day, I met Lou Cunningham in Armley. She was a Labour councillor who, like so many people from Labour, got sick and despairing of the party and joined the Greens. Welcome, Lou. Lou showed me briefly around her community, her home, her heartland. In fact, she took me to a community shop, and there I met local volunteers, and despite the lack of investment, the neglect, the total lack of care from those in power, these people spoke about their community with love, and they spoke about their trust in each other. Now, this story's perfect ending would be that Mothin and Lou got over the line, but the truth is, they didn't. But the bigger truth is that line is closer than ever before. And we now know that line is very possible, don't we? And we know a lot of that line is just about first past the post. But despite all of this, we have demonstrated time and time again that even under the unfair first past the post system, we can and do win. And friends, we have done lots of winning. Suhair Abijar, she's from Libya. She has a PhD in biomedical physics, and she runs an Arabic school called Naba. Naba, during the month of Ramadan, catered for over 100 refugees and asylum seekers with food available to everyone. I had the best afternoon door knocking with Suhair, and I'm so proud. She is now one of our nearly 750 Green councillors. I could actually do this all day, just doing a speech announcing people who have won, but just one final one. On election day, I went to Sevenoaks. This is in Kent. This is a place that on paper, no person would ever imagine going Green. In fact, they had 0 councillors. Now, Shani Mampari from Sri Lanka, she was one of their candidates. She runs a bakery in Sevenoaks. Now, I didn't go just for her yummy vegan baked goods, it did help, nor did I go for Laura Manston's huge, beautiful huskies. You have to see these huskies. I actually went because they committed to Target to Win. They had read that manual. They'd followed the advice of their amazing field organizer, Talia, and they had followed that plan to the letter. They found local volunteers, local champions, and they worked all year round. On election day, I could not have been prouder to see them go from running a campaign in Laura's living room to creating a landslide in one of the safest Tory seats in the country to welcome 4 new Green councillors. And that is the story of Election Day in a nutshell, seeing these amazing local parties have these breakthroughs, and of course, those monumental wins in places like East Hertfordshire, and of course, our outright majority in Mid-Suffolk. But I just want to tell you about the end of my day. My day finished on BBC Politics Live with Jo Coburn. I gave an interview, and then she described me as remarkably chipper. I mean, it is a fair description most of the time, but let's be clear, the Labour Party had a great day. They went up 10% in relative gains. But let's be even clearer. The Green Party went up 46% in relative gains. Remarkably chipper, I was and remain bloody delighted. I am so proud of our party. Well done on those local elections. Now, to tell these stories of Greens in power, we know the difference an elected Green makes in the room. And what we really need is these positive storytellers with effective voices, not just telling stories, but getting change done. I've seen this all around the country, but actually, I see it every single day. I see it with my amazing colleagues, Sian Berry and Caroline Russell. We've been working hard, pushing the Mayor of London on a whole range of issues, from policing to housing. I have chaired the Environment Committee for the last couple of years, and recently, I've been on a long journey with London Mayor Sadiq Khan around the universal basic income pilot. Now, for those who don't know, this is just a basic idea that every single person in a community gets a set amount of money. We could eradicate poverty. This is money for their basic existence, things like rent, food, transport. It's not conditional, so we end these ridiculous conversations about the deserving poor or the undeserving poor. It is a real way of moving forward. And when I asked the London Mayor about this for the first time, he was pretty dismissive. So I used 2 tried, tested, and trusted Green tactics. 1, evidence. Just keep pointing to the data, wave it around in a report, say it, tweet it, whatever it is, keep talking about it. And that links with number 2, persistence. Just don't stop banging on about it, basically. Keep going and going because we know we're right. As well as doing that, I commissioned a report. I worked with some amazing researchers, Lena Swedlow and Cllr Goodman from the think tanks Autonomy and Compass, along with the Green Party's Robert McGowan, who did amazing work putting this report together, asking some vital questions. What does good community engagement look like? How do we make sure underrepresented groups are always included? And crucially, for a universal basic income, how do you make sure disabled people are listened to the very start? So when we're making these changes, everyone knows that they're coming on board and this is going to be better off for them. So I released this report and the Mayor seems to be changing his mind. He has now said that these communities are fantastic and he's really pleased they're doing this work. Now, there is still a long way to go and there is a lot of work and persistence to get there. But just this year, new pilots were announced in East Finchley and Jarrow, where I went recently to the University of Northumberland to launch this report. This is an example that you'll all have of examples where elected Greens push elected Labour representatives to progressive positions eventually. It takes a long time, and time is not something we have. And this May, in all our local elections, it is time to cut out the middlemen. I know someone who's the very opposite of a middleman. That is not some way I would describe her. In fact, that is Zoe Garbett. Zoe's looking at me like, what are you about to say? She's channeling Caroline from yesterday with Carla. Many of you will know Zoe from her amazing work with the Drug Policy Working Group. She has been a totally principled, unfaltering voice in saying UK drug policy has failed. The war on drugs has failed, and Zoe is very clear, it is killing people. Zoe is putting transport at the center of everything she does, an affordable, accessible transport system. And one of the pieces of work I'm so proud of Zoe as her elected work in Dalston as a councillor is around market traders in Ridley Road. This market has been there since the 1880s. It's predominantly black traders, and they are being over-policed and underprotected by the community. Zoe has been with them, standing in solidarity. But my favorite part of this story is the day she was selected to be running for mayor. She went to the market because she was talking to them about something else, and she just dropped into conversation. Oh, I'm now running for London mayor, by the way. They were absolutely delighted. We are absolutely delighted. I can't wait for Zoe to join us on the London Assembly. Let's get Zoe elected! And so, we arrive at the story of this present moment, where we are. We have the beautiful sea, we have the beautiful, compassionate, kind people in this room. Yet, sometimes compassion and kindness very much feels like it's missing from our national conversation. Recently, I was interviewed by Owen Jones, and his first question to me was, what's the story of British politics at the moment? It was a collective sigh I didn't want to do in the microphone. We talk, or they talk, about a cost of living crisis. This is not a cost of living crisis for everyone. Lots of people, particularly the super rich, are doing particularly well at the moment. This is not a cost of living crisis. It's an inequality crisis. And Liz Truss, was not an aberration. We know this Conservative government, they essentially, the stench of corruption and entitlement holds with everything they do. And they've tried to claim that Liz Truss was some kind of diversion, but actually, she was the inevitable conclusion of a free market ideology that protects big corporations, protects tax loopholes, and ultimately stands for the super rich, whilst millions of people are living in poverty and desolation. And then, now we have Rishi Sunak. He's no real change, he's just a slower march towards collapse. He is flying around in his superjet. He's flying around in his private superjet while he mocks those in poverty beneath him. 1 in 4 children in this country is living in poverty. 1 in 4. And the Conservatives, they think it's just a game. But the Labour Party, they think it's some sort of acceptable status quo that doesn't need to be challenged. But friends, we will challenge it. We will continue to challenge it. And we will keep challenging it until every child in this country has food in their tummy and heat in their homes. I've talked today about stories for good. We know there's stories for bad too. There are stories being told in this country right now that compare our national economy to a household budget, which is totally economically incoherent. It's a story that puts GDP as this big aim and objective, even though the person who came up with the concept of GDP says this is a terrible way to measure happiness and well-being. You'll all remember the moment, right, where Keir Starmer, he was challenged by young climate activists on the very future of this planet. And his response, his instinct, I'm on the side of economic growth. Economic growth and neoliberalism has not created the free markets it promised. Instead, it is undermining our democracy, and it has created an economy that is moving profit to big corporations who have no interest in the poorest and most vulnerable. We live in a society where 50 of the largest economies, they're not countries, they're these same corporations. You know, when I ask people, why did you join the Green Party? They frequently say things like, because I think a better society is possible. We know that's possible, but the other two old parties, they try and dismiss us as idealists or you're not being pragmatic, yet they're ignoring the very existential crisis that faces this planet. Yes, a crisis of climate, but arguably even more urgent, a crisis of nature and ecological collapse. The Conservatives, they lack the vision to even recognize the problems, and they just don't even care. But the Labour Party, they recognize that things are broken, but they don't seem to be able to come up with solutions that meet the scale of the challenges. It's like they're afraid, out of ideas, stuck, dug in. It's this strange, curious mix of cynicism and pessimism. The Welsh writer and thinker, Raymond Williams, he said, "To be truly radical is to make hope possible, not despair convincing." We will meet their cynicism and despair with our hope and our vision. We know that happiness and prosperity doesn't have to literally cost the earth. We know that the climate emergency, tackling it is not a list of things to be banned or sacrificed. This is a way of creating a better world. It's about investing in cleaner air, more cohesive communities, better ways of getting around through walking, transport, public transport. It's about lives lived with purpose. It is about creating what is politically possible. And I may have mentioned this before in passing, but there's no environmental justice without racial, social, and economic justice too. We'll keep joining those dots. And friends, while we do, I just want to take a moment to mention animal justice too. We need to protect wildlife and those beings on this planet. The dogs in particular, I want to mention, join Greens, Greens for Animal Protection. They can't do this alone. So, we've seen this intersectionality, this idea that everything's connected, and we know these positive narratives. But what are we facing? We saw just last week, Suella Braverman say that multiculturalism has failed. It's absurd. It's ridiculous. Yet, it can be attractive to people who are facing fears over homes, over jobs, over infrastructure. We need more positive stories to be able to counter that narrative. I've been working with an amazing organization. I was introduced to them by Matthew Hull from the Green Party Trade Union Group, and that is the United Voices of the World. This is a group that self-describe as working with low-paid black and brown migrant workers who come from all over the world. The first time I worked with them, I was working with a group of care workers. They weren't even being paid a proper wage, and they were striking against their working conditions. They were from Ecuador, Jamaica, Nigeria, everywhere you can imagine. Now, when I first went to meet them, the CEO rewarded them with pizza for their hard work. In fact, as they said, it was cold pizza. Now, these are the people that when we were locked away in our homes during the pandemic, they were out keeping our cities moving. They were the hidden workers, people who are rarely seen or heard, but are vital to everything we do. So I joined them on the picket line. I spoke to local news about what was going on. They are now some of the highest paid care workers in the city. Unions work, collective solidarity works. We stand with those hidden workers. Not everyone has that positive story. Just a few months ago, I was outside the Home Office protesting the Bibi Stockholm, the floating prison. A woman from Syria spoke powerfully about the challenges she'd faced, how treacherous that journey was. And just beyond her, in the distance while she was speaking, 2 children were doing what every child should get to do. They were playing without fear. When people tell us their fears about infrastructure, about housing, about jobs, They are not the problems of migrants. They are problems caused by 13 years of Tory austerity and the Labour Party complicit in not challenging these narratives. We will challenge them. And I can't possibly speak on migration without recognising the work of our spokesperson on migration, Banali Hamdash, who has been making the case we need safe routes and reunification of families. Thank you, Banali, for everything you do. And so we're on to the final story, the story of our future. Rishi Sunak is complicit in climate crimes. The whole Conservative Party are complicit in making some of the most vulnerable people in this country much, much worse. They are complicit with destroying our planet, and we are saying we need a general election now. We can do this, conference. We did it last May. Whether you were door knocking, phoning, making soup, being a candidate, being the candidate's dog walker, everyone's contribution is really needed. And I started this speech by talking about diversity. We need to be as diverse as the communities we seek to represent. Please encourage women, non-binary people, people of colour, people who are disabled, neurodiverse people. We need everyone's contribution, not just to be candidates, but to be organisers too. This is everyone's responsibility. Let's take it with the seriousness it requires. This is a story about a future country that knows when people strike, our first response, along with resolution, is solidarity. This is a country where we know no human being should ever be illegal. And this is a country where LGBTIQA people are not accepted or tolerated, we're celebrated. And finally, this is a story in the future that has to involve electing 4 Green MPs to Parliament. Just imagine that future election night. You're either at account or you're watching on TV, you're probably at account, and you're seeing those results roll in. We've just seen Adrian Ramsey and Ellie Chowns elected in Waveney Valley and North Herefordshire. The night has begun with the start of the Green Party parliamentary group. And it's a story of Bristolians. They were proud to do something special and different. They saw a renewables engineer who knew that the challenges to renewables were not technical, they weren't financial, they were political. I cannot wait to see Cllr on those green benches, removing those political barriers and working towards it. And it's a story, you know what's coming. It's a story right here in Brighton Pavilion, where we went on to build on the amazing achievements of Caroline Lucas. I know Brighton's future representative pretty well. I have worked with the future representative every single day for years, and I have seen how she holds the powerful to account. I have seen her work with determination, with resilience, with grit. She will not let anything go. And I cannot wait for that first Prime Minister's question time, when we hear the Speaker call on the Right Honourable Member for Brighton Pavilion, Sean Berry MP. These decisions will be in voters' hands, and we will not take a single vote complacently. Let us know, though, this is more than just 4 people. This is all of us. This is our collective contribution, and we are connected to a global movement, and our moment is now. It is time to call an end to the fossil fuel industry. It is time to call an end to toxic politics, and it is time to echo in whole new chronicles of green jobs, cleaner transport, lives lived with purpose. The path ahead is clear. It's the green path. So, friends, let us write this next chapter together. Let us move forward with the urgency, the power, and the responsibility of which this moment calls us. Let's change our towns. Let's change our cities. Let's change our country. Let's get Greens elected. Let's go. Thank you.